Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Brittany Lewis. I hope you guys can hear me. PO, can you do me a solid? First of all, hello. PO, can you make sure that you guys can hear me okay? I hope you can. I'm gonna keep talking anyway, but my name is Brittany Lewis. I'm a professional artist, a graphic designer, and tarot deck enthusiast. And Sundays is the day that I work on my dream project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And today we're picking back up where we left off with the Three of Cups. So I'm super excited because this step that we're going to be taking today is going to allow me to add color to this image. So we're laying the flats. Now, if you're new here and may not know very much about the Cosmic Gateways, just a very quick rundown. This is a project that I started in 2019. It is a dream project and this is very much a passion project. All right, thank you so much, PL. It is a passion project. This is a tarot deck consisting of 78 cards. It will come with a guidebook as well as the option to buy a companion book. I have not decided yet if I'm going to offer the companion book at the initial release of the deck, but we'll get around to it. But so far we have about 42 or 3 cards left to create. So every Sunday we'll be here working on that. All right. So last week in our live stream, what we did was finalize the sketches for the Three of Cups, or finalize the sketch, I should say, for the Three of Cups. Now, in this card, the objective was to create a story with the imagery, as it is with every card that we create. In this particular image, I wanted to create a sense of ceremony, a sense of community, and I wanted to really lean into the idea of sisterhood. So, in doing so, what I did was created a coming of age ceremony that our main character, who is featured kneeling at the in the center of the page. She's sort of coming of age, and she has her mother, her big sister, and her grandmother helping her to, make this next step in this transition into her, the next phase of her life. So very much given the maiden, mother, and crone energy. That's typically what I wanted to go for. And we're going to go ahead and add some color. Not a lot of detail today. I think we're just going to stick with the flats. They usually take me about an hour, which is about how long our live streams tend to run. So they take me about an hour. I do have an idea about playing with lighting. So we'll kind of experiment with that. If you are new here, typically what I'll do is just sort of show you the process of how I experiment through my art. To me, art is just sort of, for me, a series of happy accidents. There is some skill and some practice involved. But yeah, we're just going to play around with it. Nothing's going to be super fancy. Nothing is going to be super duper serious today. We're just laying sort of the color foundation. Now, below me is going to be our reference panel. In this panel, I have all of the images that I've gathered, just sort of as researching how I want this, or researching images that I want to pull from when it comes to creating this image. And the picture that we see here is the 3D model pose that I created here in Clip Studio Paint. Clip Studio Paint is the program that we'll be working in today. This is just sort of the 3D model rendering that I did to help me finalize the poses so that I could get the sketches and everything done. Now, as I was researching sort of what different spiritual ceremonies and different religious systems, what I found, and this was across the board, was that a lot of people tend to lean into bright and vivid colors. So I do want to channel that in this picture. We're also going to be using, this is the Queen of Wands, which is one of the cards that was completed, I believe, in 2020. For this project, I'm going to be leaning pretty heavily into her as the main reference, but I do want to show you guys, just as a reminder, some of the other references that we've gathered or that I've gathered along the way, just sort of researching the feel of what I want to go for, right? So I want this to be very colorful. A lot of the images for this deck tend to go on the side of dark, right? So we want to kind of find balance. So just like in our Queen of Pentacles, it is a nighttime scene, but she's very vividly colored and lit, and everything's very bright and beautiful. That's sort of the vibe that I want to go for in this particular card. So I'll just show you, a few more of the references, and then we'll get right into it. So yeah, I do believe I'm going to go dark. So if you're not new here, that probably isn't going to be a surprise to you. But these are some of this is the original Three of Cups. So these are just some of the references and the ideas that I got. So I really like the idea of this yellow, which is also reflected in the Queen of Wands. So we'll probably pick that back up. Again, I do just want to experiment, right? All right. So what I'm going to do is go back to my Queen of Wands, and I'm going to borrow her blue. And before we do, I'm going to borrow her blue, but before we do that, what I'm going to do is go ahead and get rid of all of the things in our layers panel that I no longer sort of need. So while we were creating the sketches for this particular picture, the layers are going to be over to my right. I created a lot of duplications. I created a lot of sort of backup um, images just in case I messed up one and didn't want to sort of redraw things. So what I'm going to do is just sort of lighten the load on the file, and I'm going to get rid of some of this stuff that we're not going to use, because what we have drawn is pretty much the gist of the information that we need to continue and make this a fleshed out image. So I'm just going to grab some of those layers that I don't need, erase them, and then what I'm going to do is put everything into its own folder. Now we've been through sort of the process of creating cards for a while now. I've been streaming now since June the 30th. So some of this you guys have seen before, but for those of you who are new, this is sort of the process that I take with every digital illustration that I do. I'm going to label this file sketches, and I'm just going to sort of condense everything so that I can navigate my layers a little bit better. Now, layers act very much like a layer cake, or sort of a stack of pancakes, if you will. In this image, as we lay down our flats, I'm going to sort of, there's not a lot of depth, right? So there's not really a huge foreground. There's not really a huge middle ground and huge background like there was in our 3 of Wands. But if there were, I would color my images and I would arrange my layers from back forward. So the layer on top will be the foremost part of the image. In this case, it's not super important. The only place that'll sort of matter is making sure that whatever we color, however we color our grandmother figure, we want to make sure that our little girl is above her. We want to make sure that our mother is above the little girl. And so that's sort of how we'll play with layers a little bit. But before we get into that, I do have my sketches in the file. I have created a new layer, and I'm just going to label that background. And we're going to borrow the blue from the Queen of Wands because I like that blue. And I'm just going to drop it in with my paint bucket too. Nothing too serious or anything like this. And again, we're just laying flats. Now, I do have a standalone video about this process, but we have to take this process anyway. So I figured why not show you again, because this is something I'm going to have to do regardless. All right, so the first person I think I'm going to work on, again, thinking of our layers as a stack of pancakes, is probably going to be the grandmother figure, because she is the most distant figure in this composition. So I am going to label her Granny, and I'm going to separate each aspect of this character. So I'll separate her skin from her clothes. I may separate her cup from, the horsetail that she's carrying. So I'll separate elements so that when it's time to add details to everything, I'll be able to sort of, work on those things separately. Hey, Draw Sketchbook, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad to see you. And hey, PL is always a good help. Thank you so much for confirming that the sound, I know it gets a little glitchy sometimes. So I'm so thankful to have you guys here. Draw Sketchbook, if you have any questions or anything, I'm happy to answer those for you. In the meantime, let's go ahead and get into our grandmother. Now, there are a few ways that we can go about laying down the color. We can do something very quick and easy by using the lasso tool, or we can use the brush. I'll probably use a combination of both techniques. I do enjoy using a brush because I haven't painted in a couple of days, so I like to do that in order to sort of warm up my muscles. Now, when it comes to skin tones, I'll probably pick the same one that I have here for my grandmother as a nod to this particular card. So she'll have pretty similar features, and she may even be wearing similar colors. And so one of the things that I do or have been doing as I develop this deck is to sort of draw upon some of the images that I've already created, right? So that way we create continuity. Now, for those of you who have been here for a minute, you'll hear me say quite often that when I started this project, I didn't necessarily have a plan in mind. I just sort of began drawing, right? I just kind of started the process. I didn't have a name or anything like that. The name sort of came with the second card, which was Justice, the first card being High Priestess. Got sort of the name and more of a understanding of what direction I wanted to go in by the time I got around to the second card. But prior to that, I just for years knew that I wanted to do a tarot deck and sort of just took a chance on it, right? It was one of those things that, I don't know if you've ever experienced like being pulled or like called to do something, that's sort of the experience that I had coming into this, because leading up to it, fear had me doing everything except this one dream project, right? And as a result, everything that I did sort of leading up to it until I just went on and pulled the plug and started was sort of falling through for me. I think I was doing at the time at this, and this is around, I would say, 2018, 2019, because I started the project at the end of 2019. So around 2020, it was about November 2019 when I did the first two cards. So leading up to that, I was, doing my regular standard. I did a lot of comic book conventions at the time. I still do from time to time, not quite as many. And this year I won't be doing any, so that we can focus on getting this project completed. And then next year we'll get back into the um, convention scene, with a new product and all of that. But at the time I was doing lots and lots of comic book conventions and things like that, which I absolutely enjoy. Absolutely enjoy. And at the time I was doing a lot of fan art, but I wasn't necessarily completely satisfied with the art that I was creating, right? Even though a lot of it was tailored to my own tastes, much of it was done, with the idea that, okay, this is going to sell, right? It was still stuff that I liked. It was still, based on movies and nostalgia and things like that. But I wasn't necessarily, you know, um, inspired by the work that I was creating, right? And so I was doing that. I had also applied for like grants and, mural projects and lots of public works projects and things like that. Nothing was shaking, nothing at all, because all the while I was really wanting to begin this dream project. I was just scared. And I was afraid that if I did, the audience that I had cultivated up to that point wouldn't respond. And, you get to worrying about what other people think and sort of going through that whole thing. And so it just had gotten to a point where, okay, everything's sort of falling through, right? Gotta kind of, I'm a professional artist, so I have to be able to, have clients and do different things like that. But why not spend a good bit of time, or just even just a little bit of time working on something that I actually want to do? And so thus began the process of overcoming the fear of sort of failing other people's expectations. You sort of have to, or I had to come out of that way of thinking. And I just sort of had to take a deep dive into doing something I wanted to do. And so that sort of began the process of creating the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. Now, of course, I had been working on this for many years, because, again, I started this November of 2019. So it's been a minute, right? It's been a minute. I've learned quite a lot along the process of, creating a tarot deck. This is this is absolutely the largest project that I've ever undertaken. And I've taken on comic books, and I've done children's books and all kinds of things like that. But I've never really sat and created like 78, unique illustrations with a book, or with two books in my case, then the marketing around it and all of that. So it's been quite a bit of a learning curve, and not very many people, especially in the beginning, were interested in sharing the process of, how they made their decks, right? So a lot of it was me learning sort of a lot of stuff on my own. And I'm always okay with that. There's no problem with that. But it did take a lot of learning, right? But I have learned quite a bit. And I am very, very thankful to be able to have, bumped my head, so that maybe I can share some of the process for you guys who are thinking about doing a large project, doing a tarot deck project, or anything of the sort. Just sort of share the encouragement with you, because I know that it can be a little lonesome. It can be a lonely road. And I found that, some people, again, aren't necessarily willing to share their experiences. And that's fair. That's completely up to them. I'm not one of those people. I don't mind helping where I can, because I would have appreciated the help when I needed it, right? So thus began, again, the process of creating the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. Now, I was on my head to create a tarot deck because, one, I love the medium. I had been a reader for quite a long time. I had been a reader for a while. I was also collecting decks, but I'm very intentional about the decks that I purchase, right? I really like to be able to connect with any of the spiritual imagery or tools that I have because I feel like that's very important when you are using that sort of thing, right? So the problem that I was having is that I wasn't necessarily seeing myself reflected in any of the decks, really. Most of the decks that I had early on were very I don't know, ambiguous in a way. They didn't necessarily point to any particular person. And the ones that did, meaning pointing to a certain demographic, didn't necessarily speak to me. So here we are. I'm not finding the deck that I wanted. I am also unhappy with the art that I'm creating. I'm an artist. I want a specific tarot deck look. Why not go ahead and create that deck? And so here we are. Here we are again. Was it 6 years in November? It'll be. So yeah. I hope I'm happy and honored that so many people are resonating with it. Let me name this Granny's Top. So, what I've done so far, just to sort of segue a little bit, what I've done so far is just sort of laid in her skin tone. And I use my Queen of Wands as a reference for that because I do sort of want this character to nod to the Queen of Wands, right? She is the matriarch of her family. The Queen of Wands is the matriarch of her kingdom, right? And so I sort of want the grandmotherly figure to hold the same amount of importance and significance. So I do want to model sort of what she wears after the Queen of Wands. All right. And what I've done is I have did her skin and I did her hair. And even though this is one character, I like to separate the layers because again, if I go to change something, I don't necessarily want to influence the other layers. So if I wanted to paint her skin or something like that, or if I wanted to paint her hair is a great example of this. If I wanted to paint her hair, maybe I wanted the hair to sort of come down over her skin and I mess it up, I don't necessarily want to go and correct what I've done to her skin. So what I could do is rectify that by painting everything on a separate layer. And then once we move through the sort of creation of this image, I can always merge layers to sort of clean up my file, just like we did with our sketches. We sort of took out the things that we didn't need, and you can merge and, blend things together once you have them the way that you want them. So that's sort of where we are so far. Again, I do want to model her clothing after the Queen of Wands, which is in our reference panel right below. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. So I believe this sort of apron top, I want to keep that white for now. We're just going to experiment. Again, there's not going to be any rhyme or reason. I'm just going to sort of pick the colors that speak to me and that I think would feel pretty good for the scene. I do have the idea, though, for my art nerds out there, to create a sort of primary color scheme, right? So the primary colors would be your yellow, your blue, and your red. Very similar again to our Queen of Wands. I kind of want to play with that, but I also do want to have some vibrant pinks and purples. In terms of lighting, which will be very important, I want to give this, because we're again working on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, I want to make our central figure, the little girl, the light source. I want her to glow in some way. I want her to sort of affect the energy of people around her. And I also want to illustrate this in a way that says that they're also feeding energy into her. All right. So I know that sounds a little ambiguous, but hopefully I'll be able to show you as the weeks progress and we work on this project. Now, there are a couple of people that have joined us. So before we get too far, we go any further with our grandmother character, what I will do is show you guys just a reminder of what the Cosmic Gateways Tarot look like. Now, again, for those of you just joining us, I started this project 2019 and I've been working on that bad boy off and on ever since. Now, I do know that there are quite a few people who are excited about this and who have been watching this since the beginning. And I appreciate each and every one of you guys, because anytime that my sort of motivation or confidence wanes in this, I'll always get like a really sweet message from you to like ask when it's coming out. Even the ones that are asking what's taking so long, all of those sorts of messages sort of are validation for me, even though we don't seek to have outside validation, but it does feel good to have validation from people who are resonating with the artwork that I created. Because again, I didn't have a how should I say, I didn't have anyone to look up to in this project, and I didn't have the, resources, I guess. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that there weren't any decks that looked like this. So I was taking a gamble to create the thing that I wanted to see. And so, because this is so very new to me, a very new big project, even though it's been so many years, I do appreciate having you guys sort of check in with me and tell me how much you love it, and or if you don't like it, because I get some of those comments as well. So I really, really appreciate that from you. All right. Back to our drawing. Now, I am going to be working on the granny's top, and I'm going to be doing this very much the same. I'm probably going to break this up into layers because she does have on sort of an apron above her shirt, as well as her sort of big poofy sleeves. So I'm going to call this, well, we'll call it top, and then above that, I'm going to create a new layer, and we're going to call that granny's apron. um, or we'll call it granny's apron top. Now, this is what we're going to do. We're going to work very much the same way that we did with our, just sort of the idea of working from the back forward. I'm going to begin coloring the back of this here, and then I'll do the apron. Oh, wrong thing, on the wrong layer. Then I'll do the apron later so that the things that go underneath it are where they need to be, and the things that go on top are where they need to be. So when it has come to sort of, as it comes to creating a project of this size, one of the things that has helped me out a whole lot is making sure that I plan the cards in batches, right? So initially it was, I would say for the first, maybe the first 15 or so cards, it was just, okay, let me pull a card. The first thing I did was pull the card to see what I should work on, and I got Chariot, right? So the Chariot became the first card that I worked on. But the Chariot wasn't necessarily speaking to me, and so that card evolved into the High Priestess. From there, I'll be like, okay, well, what card do I want to work on? So there was really no sort of plan in action or anything like that for what card I should work on, in what order, anything like that. So a lot of the cards are quite out of order, and I would do them one by one. But what ended up happening is I got around to the queens, and I decided, rather than go one by one and sort of twiddle my thumbs trying to figure out which queen to do next, I'm going to go ahead and plan all four queens so that I can, sort of have the next card lined up. And that was one of the biggest sort of turning points in making sure that I can stay sort of consistent, making sure I'm not wasting too much time trying to decide what to do next, is I'll just do them in batches, right? So I started that, and that's been a huge help. Again, I didn't really have a theme in mind at first. That again came with the Justice card, and sort of, well, I would even say it came probably as I was developing the High Priestess, which again was the first card. As I was doing it, I knew that there were certain motifs I wanted to see. I knew I wanted to put the alchemy symbols somewhere within the card. I knew that I wanted things to feel very futuristic, very forward, right? Very future oriented, because a lot of the decks that I saw that pointed to a specific demographic were very much stuck in sort of old, stagnant energy. And I didn't really like that, right? One of the things that I had trouble with early on when I bought my first tarot deck was the fact that I could not connect to the images. It just felt old, right? It just felt extremely old. And so I knew that I wanted to point towards sort of the Afrofuturism, the sci-fi sort of thing, because that's what I'm into. That's what I really enjoy. And as I'm creating sort of these images under the direction of helping to, boost people's confidence and creating images that people can really connect to and see themselves in, I wanted to create stuff that felt like, okay, there is a possibility for something greater than whatever I'm experiencing right now, right? And thus began the lean into Afrofuturism. And again, I'm a big sci-fi nerd, so all of that sort of lined up. But that was very, very important to me, because so many of the decks that I was sort of coming across, that I would probably have bought just to support whomever without really looking at the cards, felt very heavy in a way that didn't feel good, right? So I wanted my artwork to feel a lot lighter. Of course, there will be some heavy imagery, and there's already been some heavy images created. But I wanted again to lean into the possibility of greatness, because I wasn't seeing that on the market. So a lot of that goes into the thought process as I create the different images and things like that. Now, I don't want to say that I will ignore certain experiences, especially as we get into like the swords, which deal a lot with depression and the mental and different struggles and things like that. Even with the 5 of Cups and the not 6 of Cups, but like the 6 of Swords. A lot of the sword cards specifically have a lot of very heavy energy, and I know that that is a common experience, an experience that I've had. So I don't want to shy away from that, but I didn't want like the whole deck to feel like doom and gloom. I just did not. I wasn't really interested in doing that. And so I think I've done or, tried to do the best that I can to make sure that that doesn't happen. All right. So I have her top, I have her sort of apron so far. What I'm going to do is I am going to create a new layer for her skirt. I don't know yet if I want to do a blue skirt or if I want to keep the yellow going and maybe have some blue accents, again leaning back to our Queen of Wands. I'm just going to play around with it, and some of this stuff may change as we go. So what I'm going to do again is create a new layer. I'm going to create it up under the top. I don't have to because the top and the skirt don't necessarily meet at any point, but just sort of for my own sake, because that's what I feel like I should do. I'm going to create it underneath, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint that in. Now, again, there are a lot of simple ways to do this. I could very easily just select this thing and select it with my lasso tool and fill it in with the paint bucket, very much like I did the background, just fill it in. But I like the idea of laying down brush strokes because it warms me up. Again, I have not painted anything in a few days. So this sort of gets my muscles warmed up like I would be working out in the gym, right? So I really, really like to add brush strokes. Also, when I'm doing this, it does add some color variations that I can pick up. So if I were adding details and I was laying down these brush strokes, like there is I'll zoom in a little bit. The main color that we're going for is, let me see, is this color here, right? It's this yellow, right? But as I am sort of laying this yellow on the blue, it is creating another color, this area here. So as I'm painting, sometimes what I'll do is I'll have those sort of in between colors, and that'll help me do like things like the wrinkles and the folds and things like that. So it becomes pretty helpful when you do it that way. I also don't necessarily work with line art. I don't know if I've ever mentioned mentioned that. I know we have a lot of artists who watch this live stream, a lot of aspiring digital artists and beginners and things like that. I don't work with line art. I don't necessarily, it does not fit the style that I'm after. And it's just sort of a personal choice. There's really no other reason other than to me, it does not necessarily fit the aesthetic that I'm after artistically. And it doesn't feel like second nature for me, right? It doesn't necessarily feel, it doesn't really feel necessary at all for me, right? There are times when I do use line art, like if I'm working on a comic book or something like that, where line art is like that's expected. Then we'll go ahead and add line art to my images. But when it comes to like my average digital illustration, I'm not necessarily worried too much about line art. And that's really why I don't worry too much about having a perfect sketch, because I'm not going over it with anything. I just need enough information to be able to tell me what's what so that I can color it in and add details and things like that. Now, doing that and in the style that I work in, it probably takes a little bit longer than it would be if I were using sort of the selection tool and different sort of more comic esque drawing style. But I just like how I do it. Sort of style sort of develop with time and with practice. And so my styles, like most people's, did the same thing. I didn't deliberately go out to say, okay, well, I'm not going to use, it just didn't feel natural for me to do that. And also my background is in traditional medium, and I don't use line art when I paint portraits or anything like that. So it just, that's something, a practice that I hadn't really gotten into. And I don't necessarily see a reason to begin, right? If that makes sense. This is sort of how I naturally draw. And if you're an artist, I challenge you to go with what feels natural for you. because what you'll see me do may not feel right and natural for you. So be okay with experimenting and trying new things until you nail something that feels second nature. Now, as I've done this, I've gone ahead and drawn in my grandmother's skirt, colored it the same way. I just sort of noticed that we were missing a little bit of skin here, and I'll tighten that up. And we'll continue to work on whatever else she has. So she's holding cups. Now, with the cups, I'll probably have them all in their same, maybe, I don't know. Maybe I won't. I was going to say I'll have them all on the same layer, but I think I will. I'm going to have them all on the same layer. That'll probably be one of the last things that we do is the cups. And the cup that I'm going to be using as a sort of reference is going to be the cup that I did for the Knight of Cups. And I'm going to see if I can pull that up for you guys to see. Let's see. And then I'll show you sort of what that looks like, because that was the cup that I referenced that I used for this particular picture. I think I'm going to pull it up in my reference panel. Until then, while that's working, I'll show you guys again what the Cosmic Gateways Tarot look like. And if you're watching this live or the replay, I really, really appreciate you guys for being here. Makes my heart smile to see you and to have you say hey and to check in and all of that. And I hope that you guys do enjoy these live streams. So, okay, let me find the Knight of Cups so you guys can sort of see the cup that I think I'm going to use for this particular picture. Because it was a very relatively simple cup for me to create. And I think because these are 3 identical cups, it'll be pretty easy for me to move forward with this. I'm going to pull that up so you can see, and then we'll go from there. Even in this card, I believe is a nighttime scene. So while that's coming up, let me switch back over. And it'll load in just a second. Maybe there it is. Okay. So it's a pretty simple cup, right? Very metallic. There is a couple of sort of indications that there's light, and this is the Knight of Cups. All right, so this is what I'll do. Since there are 3, they're drawn pretty similar. I'll go ahead and use this cup as my reference. Let me go back to my Queen of Wands. All right. Now, you may notice in my grandmother's skirt, I didn't necessarily draw in, there's a big old blotch in the middle of her skirt, because I know that I'll have a character there. I don't necessarily have to draw the yellow there. It's very much, very much unnecessary. Now, if I wanted to, and I wasn't really sure that I was going to have my central character there, for sure, I would draw the information in. But there is that is a testament to having a good sketch, because after the sketch has been finalized, I sort of know where everything is. All right. So that is his grandmother. Let me go ahead and paint in her horsetail, and I am going to paint that above the skin. And I think I want to go with, what color? Maybe I'll go with a white one for now. Maybe we'll pull on this color, desaturate it a bit. And we're just gonna, of course, let's go above our skirt. There we go, because it wouldn't show up otherwise. We're gonna go above her skirt and just paint this in very lightly, just as an indication that this is here. And when it's time for us to go back and do like the details and tighten this thing up, then we'll, make it look a little bit better, have a little more razzle dazzle. But this is the gist of what they look like, right? So this is the hair part. And then what we'll do is give it a handle. Like so. Now, if I were to turn off my sketch, I'll show you what this looks like with the sketch turned off. And that'll help us kind of see where we need to tighten things up. And it's not pretty, and it's not going to be for a while, but this is pretty much the gist of doing flats. Now, if I wanted it to be a little more accurate, let me uncheck that. So there's, for instance, there's some missing information here. There's some missing information there, that needs to be tightened up here, all of this. The easiest way for me to avoid that happening is to turn down my sketch, but for the time being, I can do that later. I just want to lay in my base colors and turn back on my sketch. All right. So the next character If we're looking at this, it could be either or. It could be the mother or the big sister. I think I'm going to go with the mother for now. And I think just sort of going in line with the primary color vibe, since our grandmother has on yellow, maybe we'll lean a little bit into red with our. You want to do red or blue? We're going to experiment with a little blue. Yeah, we'll do that. All right. So, what I'm going to do from here, I'm going to put that horsetail on the top layer. So, all of these layers are going to be the granny's layers. So, we have quite a few. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 layers for granny. On top of granny, so that I can keep everything organized, I'm going to label this mom skin. And then I'm just going to proceed, right? Now, what I could do is I could add all of those into a folder. I may do that after the fact. I don't like to do like many folders because it can be kind of cumbersome to sort of go from layer to layer and having to open and close folders. I don't necessarily want to do that. So for the time being, we'll leave it. Now I'm just adjusting the the skin color at the top where it says restream on your screen. There is a sort of color picker, and I have it set to hue, saturation, and value. The hue, which is covered up by the word restream, is sort of where I can go from, yellow to blue and so on and so forth. I want her skin to be a little less red than the grandmother's because she has a father, so she would take in characteristics from her dad as well. And I think I'm going to keep it about here, and then we'll see how that looks. And so, just like with our grandmother, I'm just going to paint her in. Again, if you're just joining me, there is a much easier way to do this. But I do enjoy laying down the brush strokes. And the easier way is going to be to do the lasso tool. And I actually might do that with one of her arms so that you guys can kind of see what that looks like. But I am in no hurry. I just want to take my time, get the feel of the stylus on the screen, and work my way around. So something like this. Now, when we were doing the sketch, I did play around with her mouth a little bit. I wasn't really sure if I wanted her mouth to be open and closed. And I think by the time we ended our last live stream, I had it closed. But when I came back to sort of set her up to be completed, I went on and opened her mouth. I don't know why. It spoke to me. I wanted her to be yelling for her dollar or, celebrating for her. So I went ahead and opened her mouth. I think that was a good choice. It did take me a little bit of doing to do, not too much. I just sort of had to remember that the mouth, for the most part, is like a circular shape. I like to break things down into nice, easy shapes and concepts so that it's a lot easier for me to draw and to think about. So I just was like, okay, well, when your mouth's open, it's pretty much a hole, right? So I just sort of took that into consideration, made sure that the placement was good, and then drew her in with an open mouth. And I like it a lot better. I also made some tweaks to the placement of her eye. I had it a little bit too close to her nose, and so I just fixed it up a little bit. Only small tweaks and things like that, and we got it together. All right, so that's me painting it in. Now I'm going to show you how, or another way that I could do this. And it looks like it's going to start auto saving. Come on, auto save. There it is. The other way that I can color this in, which is a lot quicker, so if I were just in a super big hurry to do this, I could use the lasso tool. Now, in Clip Studio, the shortcut for that is M. And over to my right hand side above the layers, you may have seen sort of this panel here change. I like to use a polyline. There is a free-form lasso tool, meaning I can draw every which way like this, and it'll sort of make a selection. I like to use the polyline. I'm not entirely sure what this is called in other programs, but it's pretty much a static line. And you just sort of trace and make points along whatever it is that you want to fill in or whatever it is that you want to select. I like this because I get a much tighter outline. With the regular freeform, you get a much looser, so it just sort of depends on what you're after. You do get a looser selection. I just am faster with this one. I have to make fewer corrections using the polyline. Is just sort of my preference, right? All right, so from there that is selected, I'm just going to drop it in just like that. So it happens very quickly. The trouble though with this is that when I do it, it always leaves extremely hard edges, right? So if I turn off my sketch where I have, show you, where I have much sort of freer edges along the side of my. Now this is going to take some cleaning up, right? With the polyline, it leaves a little bit of a harder edge. Both of them to me need to be cleaned up. This edge in particular needs to be softened, and then of course this one needs to be tightened up quite a bit. So it does have its advantages and disadvantages. Again, it is a lot faster just to select, but I do enjoy it. I just like to paint. I just like to paint them in and call it a day. So while I'm at it, what I'm going to do is make sure I have my brush selected. There we go. All right. And I'm going to use the eyedropper tool to pick that back up. We're just going to fill it back in, right? Or tighten it up a little bit. And as I go, we'll get even tighter, but I don't necessarily want it to feel as rigid as the polyline does. And that's just sort of a personal preference. I've seen artists such as, I think her name is Loish, who I really, really enjoy. She has a very, very distinctive style. She uses the polyline quite frequently, or the lasso tool quite frequently, and it gives her work a certain look. For me, because I am a traditional artist, first, I've been a traditional artist much longer than a digital artist. To me, I just enjoy the painterly look that you get with less rigid lines, right? Now, am I creating a little more work for myself? Maybe, you know, but I do enjoy it. So it doesn't necessarily feel like a lot more work, if that makes sense. So this is her stomach. And again, this isn't perfect. It really doesn't even have to be neat and clean, because something is going to sit on top of this. Her shirt is going to sit here. So I don't necessarily have to worry about going inside the lines. And that sort of is the reason why when I am laying down flats, I want to make sure that I am laying them in order that they appear, right? From back forward. So I know that this is going to be underneath her shirt, and this is going to be sort of on top. Now, where you sort of get a little bit of a hiccup is here, because this arm lays on top of the shirt, but this doesn't really take much to clean it up, and I'll show you that just a bit as soon as we get her skin finished. And for this one, I might go ahead and use the lasso just so we can get through this part. And just like I did with her arm, I'm going to select around her foot like so, and then I'm just going to drop the color in. So yeah, this is what it is to work on a dream project. You definitely have to make time for the things that you want to do, and don't be afraid to do things that you have not seen before. So one of the sort of, I've only gotten a couple of questionable comments about the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, and I believe they were rooted in I don't know what they were rooted in. But what happened was that I had someone who was sharing a lot of the artwork in one of the tarot communities, and I was super, like, always a fan of that. So if you guys want to share the images, absolutely please do. That helps me out so much. But in this particular community, a lot of the images were being shared, and one person in particular, she would comment and things like that, but for whatever reason she took issue with the fact that all of my characters were black. It's like, well, I don't know, it doesn't mean that this is exclusive to any group. I'm just pretty much painting my own experience and painting the things that I want to see. She wanted to make it an issue of, well, is this just a black deck? No, right? We don't ask if Rider Waite is just a white deck. You just buy Rider Waite because that's the one that you want. And you buy, whichever deck it is that you want because that's what you want. And so that became a bit of an issue. But it did not stop, the progress of creating the thing that I wanted to see, right? And so you have to sort of be confident in your decision making. You sort of have to be okay with it not being for everyone. It just like everything's not for you. You have to be okay with that. And you have to sort of take a chance on yourself. You have to bet on yourself. You have to bet on your dream. You have to listen to your intuition, right? My intuition was like, hey, man, make this deck be a reflection of your own experiences so that it is authentic to you, so that it's much easier to tell the story of it. And I don't have to fake the funk. You have to sort of take that stance. Now, I just did the lasso tool, and as you've seen, we made pretty light work of her top. We'll do the same thing with her skirt. Now, there'll probably be other colors in her skirt, in all of their sort of outfits, but this is going to be the basis of this particular dress. So yeah, well, if you have something that you want to do, don't be afraid to just do it, right? Sometimes we can sort of plan ourselves into non-action. That happens a lot, and that's pretty much what was happening at the beginning of this process. Before I even began, I was sort of, overthinking it, and I need to do this, and I need to have it perfect, and I need to have all of these ducks in a row. Sometimes you just got to start, right? Sometimes you just got to start. So, like if you want to do YouTube or something like that, and you're figuring, well, I don't have a camera, and I don't have a light, and I don't have this, and this, don't worry about it. Just sort of do, um, take baby steps and sort of add to whatever you're doing as you go, learn as you go, right? But take the chance to sort of get out there and, bet on you. All right. Because everybody starts from zero. Now, some people, of course, work their way up and then they get into different things, and it's a success because they've already built, or they have sort of a built in audience for it. But they actually had to start, at some point, nobody knew who they were, right? And so you have to be okay with starting from the ground zero and being consistent. And so for me, being consistent entails showing up every Sunday to show you guys the process of creating this tarot deck and talking your ears off a little bit. So again, if you're watching this live or the replay, I really, really appreciate you for being here, because you could be looking at anything, and I appreciate you for watching me. So thank you so much for that. All right, so we have our, for the most part, we have her just about done. I have to add her hair in. I do have her in a blue outfit. I think maybe her apron, I might have a different color. So what I'm going to do is create a new layer. I'm going to name this Mom's Apron, and maybe her apron will be similar to her mother's apron, meaning that it'll be just a lighter shade of the color that she's wearing. And for this one, I've been using the lasso here lately. For this one, I'm just going to brush it in, and then next Sunday, we'll begin working on the details. Because we have so many figures, I may work on some of this outside of live, and I may not. I don't know. I actually don't mind now that I've gotten over the fear of creating in front of people. I don't mind showing you guys the process of, painting these colors in, or painting these pictures and creating these illustrations, and showing you that it doesn't have to be perfect the first go round. Or it doesn't have to be perfect initially. You can always work at it and make it exactly what you want. That's one of the things that I sort of took I wouldn't say early on, but I used to be a time where I would count the amount of time I would spend on something. And I would be like, okay, I spent 3 hours on that. It's done. Like, I don't want to spend much more time than that. But the day that I decided, let me keep going until it feels complete, is the day that I elevated my art. I don't know what the heck had gotten into me that day, but I was like, you know what? Let me push it a little bit further. Let me work on this until I'm actually satisfied with it. And that was the moment that my art got so much better. And you gain a lot of confidence when you do that, right? Let's see. We're going to do Mom's hair. And I'm going to pick up her skin tone. And I'm going to make it just a bit red. And I actually want to put this behind her outfit. Above, no, do I want it above her skin? I think I want it underneath her skin, so that it does not interfere with what we've already painted. And you can also use the lasso tool with this, even though I am painting in what will be curly hair. I'm just sort of laying the base color, and around the edges we'll sort of just create some shapes. And then I will come back later with a texture brush and give her hair definition and texture, things like that. And if I'm not happy with the way that looks, so let's say I like that, but I'm not necessarily happy with the tone of the brown, what I could do, and what I'm going to do, is go to in Clip Studio. This will be under the edit menu. There is a panel called Hue, Saturation, and Luminosity, which works very similar to our color panel, which is Hue, Saturation, and Value. And what I can do is I can decide if I want to go with a different tone, right? So if I wanted more yellow, I would move the lever this way, and it'll change color, and it'll go across the whole rainbow. If I wanted it to be a little more red, which I think I do, I would do this. If I wanted it to be much more vibrant, right? So let's take the vibrancy as far up as we can go. We could do something like this, which is not half bad, but I think too vibrant for this scene. Maybe we'll move the vibrance up to something like this. And if I decide I want it to be darker, oh, and just realizing you guys can't see. So the saturation, I have it at 44. So if I wanted to change the saturation, I'll just sort of move it up and down. That makes it bright red. If I want it to be desaturated or gray, I will move it all the way down like so. I think we had it at about 44. So I think I'm pretty happy with that. If I want to change how light or dark this is, I will move the luminosity layer down or to my left if I want it to go darker. If I wanted it to be lighter, I would move it to my right. And we get this really bright pink, right? So, which is wrong for the scene. I think I want it to be just a little bit darker. But I do like how vibrant it is, right? So, sort of a reddish, dark reddish color. Because mom's got a little razzle dazzle, right? Something like that. All right. That was a very quick and easy way to do the colors. Now, that's important to do now because later on, as we add details and things like that, if I were to go through the same process of the hue and saturation, it'll sort of change all of the colors, right? So you can get some very funky effects. Sometimes that works in our favor. A lot of times it just creates a little bit of a headache. So it's easy to best to establish that in this sort of process. Hey, China, happy to see you here. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, so that's sort of the process that we take for that. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do, because we're wrapping up our mother figure, we have our maiden, mother, and crone, is I'm going to go ahead and paint in her smudge stick because and for those of you who are joining us now, the process or the sort of the story that we're creating in this is that our central figure, who is a little girl, is coming of age. Maybe this is her first menstrual cycle, and this is her her woman ceremony. Maybe she's sort of joining this sisterhood. Whatever the case is, she's going through this coming of age ceremony. And so around her I have her mother, or three characters: her mother, who is the mother; her big sister, who is our maiden; and her grandmother, who is her the crone, right? So you have the mother, maiden, and the crone. And then we have, of course, our main character. Now, with this, I wanted to create a sense of celebration because the Three of Cups deals a lot with community. And I'll show you guys the original Three of Cups. It deals a lot with community, also celebration, and sort of it has a sisterhood vibe to me, right? And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. So this is our original Three of Cups. So I wanted to play on this particular image where they're having a feast, they're celebrating, they're having a good time, whatever it is that they're celebrating. I wanted to give that celebration a little bit more meaning in the Three of Cups of the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And so here we are, right? So we are in the process of creating costuming and sort of adding another layer to the story. One of the things that I wanted to lean into was some of the different religious, sort of not religious, but sort of the different spiritual practices and ceremonies and dances and things like that as they go across the board, so that we have ties to different spiritual systems as well. So in this, our crone character, our grandmother, has a horse tail, which is often used for cleansing and purifying the energy in the air. Her mother is holding a sage stick, which is very much used for the same purpose. And her sister has a tambourine, which is calling forth whatever energy it is that they are trying to evoke in this ceremony. So when I create a story or, do things like that, it helps to, I don't know, it helps sort of give each image direction. So it's not just, okay, doing the Three of Cups, there are three women dancing, let me do three women dancing. But if I can create a story, if I can create a concept, if I can do something like that, then I think it adds a little bit of depth to each card. And I think it just makes it neat. I think when it comes to reading these cards, there'll be a lot more information in them. And then people will be able to draw upon their own experiences. China says, oh, I love this concept. Thank you so much. Hey, Black Zatu. How you doing? I'm glad to see you. China says she loves this concept so much of the Three of Cups, and you've been great. I'm so glad to hear you're doing good, and I hope you're doing well. I am doing awesome. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, so here we are with the Three of Cups. Now I do see a rogue line that I need to clear out of here. Let me see if I can find it. It's going to be somewhere near the grandmother. Is it in a horsetail? Yep. All right, I see this random line we want to go ahead and get rid of here. So yeah, when I'm creating sort of the cards for this, one of the things that I've learned sort of in the years that I've been working on this is one to create in batches. That helps out so much. So again, we're creating all of the threes or sort of the concept of the threes, and I sketch them individually, but they are done all at one time. I did that with the queens. I did that with the pages. I did that with the twos. And I think that's it. I started with the started on the kings, but I haven't really solidified what I want the kings to look like. So, but as I move forward, creating them in batches and sort of creating stories around each of the meanings of the cards, I think is going to really, really play a huge part in how these cards are read, right? And then you guys get to see it. So for the threes, we went through the whole process. We did the thumbnails for the first. No, was it the threes? Was it the threes or the twos? I think it was the twos. The twos we did all of the thumbnails for. The threes we did, but I did not know yet how I wanted to approach the three of cups or the three of pentacles. But we did go ahead and design our three of wands and our three of swords. And then because I already knew that I had a concept for the Three of Swords, I decided to go ahead and approach the Three of Wands so that I could get it over with, right? I knew that the Three of Swords wasn't going to take me very long to do. So I wanted to kind of come up with a story that would be a little more challenging for me so that we could go ahead and, show you guys the process from start to finish. And I enjoyed that. And I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. All right. So we're going to do maiden skin, right? So let's see. I don't think we're going to use the exact same skin color as the grandmother. Maybe we'll go just a hint darker, something similar, but just a little bit darker, maybe a little bit less red. And again, there's a couple of ways that I can approach this. I can use the lasso tool, which I might do. And I'll do that with her. I'll do it with her face. We'll do it with her face. So with the lasso tool, I just simply make a selection, and this selection is going to be imperfect, but it is going to be fairly close to what I need it to be, and I'll just need to do some minor cleaning up. I'm going to go into her head wrap because all that's going to be covered up, and from there, what I'll do is grab my paint bucket and drop in her color. So now we have 3 unique skin tones, so we can use that. You could read all kinds of things into that, right? This could be 3 unique tribes because each of these women will have a family of her own, right? So we can do it that way. We'll go ahead and paint in her arm here. And in this case, I'm just going to use the brush to paint it in manually. And I have no rhyme or reason for using either method, other than sometimes when I use the brush, I really, really enjoy just the act of brushing across the screen. And I like to do it, especially at the beginning of a project or beginning of my work day, because it helps me to sort of warm up those hand muscles, right, as I'm drawing. But the lasso tool comes in handy if I want to save time, because either way I have to clean it up. So if I turn off the sketches, we'll see. You can see it really, really good in the grandmother where there's imperfection along the seams of her clothing. That sort of happens as we brush these in, but we'll clean that up as we go. The main thing is that we're making decisions on our color palette in this particular piece, right? And then next week we'll come back and we'll pick a character and we'll work on that character. I don't know if it's going to be our main character. I don't know if it's going to be our grandmother. I don't know if we're going to go in the same order or not. We'll just sort of see what feels right and go from there. But I'm really happy to have you guys here and watching. If you like this, please do me a huge favor and hit the like button. That helps me out a whole lot. My goal this year, I think we have about 766 subscribers. My goal this year is to reach 1,000. I want to reach 1,000. So if you guys could hit that thumbs up, if you guys could subscribe and tell your friends and family or whoever you think may be interested in this type of content to go ahead and join me and subscribe as well, that helps me out so much. That is my 2025 goal for this year, to get 1,000 subscribers. I've had this channel now since 2013. And I got I've gone through every phase I feel like I can go through as someone who creates videos and publishes them to YouTube, where I'll get like super motivated. At the beginning, I started it because I really enjoy watching time lapse videos, right? And because I was an artist and I like time lapses and I wasn't seeing the time lapses that I wanted to see, I just started filming myself paint, and they were literal paintings. I would film myself paint and then I would just upload it, right? So it was growing initially very well, and then I got burnt out, and then I would come back, and then I get burnt out again, and then I would come back, and so the cycle went right. But I have not gotten to 1,000 yet. So I would love to get to 1,000 subscribers. So if you guys could help me do that, I would greatly, greatly, I'd appreciate it. That is my goal for 2025. But yeah, if you are enjoying this, please don't hesitate to leave a thumbs up. If you want to see certain stuff on this channel, right? If you want to, I know that we have the reason that I'm sort of walking through the actual process of me creating these cards is because I know that we have a large audience of creators who are wanting to learn digital art, right? So I do like to share the process. Again, we talked a little bit about the struggle, not necessarily the struggle, but the lack of information that I found in terms of actually creating a tarot deck and the process, the business behind it, the sort of process of getting it manufactured, sort of the tight-lippedness around it, right? And so I know that for a lot of people, this is something that they may want to do, right? They may want to create their own deck, whether they are creating it themselves, such as I am, drawing my own cards, whether they are looking to hire someone to do that for them, or if they find an alternative means. I am very open about sharing sort of the process of that, right? So I know a few months ago, I think early on, maybe around July or so, July or August, I did an interview with Zajay Richardson, which is on this channel. So if you go back after this live stream and go to the live panel and sort of scroll all the way down to some of the older videos, you guys will see an interview there what I did with Zajay, who is also a deck creator. So you'll get a chance to sort of hear about her process and hear about her sort of the decisions that she's made and the avenues that she's taken to create her card. So you have my take on it, right? Because you guys get to watch that every Sunday, but you'll also be able to see or hear from someone who's taking an alternative approach. So if this is something that you want to do, or if there's just a project in general that you're looking to do, that may be a source of inspiration for you. So you're certainly welcome to check that out. All right. So with this card, now we have our blue, we have our yellow. I want to go red with our younger maiden. I think that fits red or like a pinky color. And I'll probably add more colors to this because as colorful as it is, so far it's not quite where I want it to be, but we're just sort of laying the foundation again. But yeah, if there's something that you want to see on this channel, if you have a question about what it is to create, from the art perspective, from the business perspective, what it is to be like a professional designer and artist, I would love to answer those questions for you. I am I would say very transparent about it. I have been a professional graphic designer and illustrator since 2008, right? So that was my last year in college. Got my first design job shortly thereafter. I think maybe the spring of 2008, summer spring 2008 is when I got my first design job. I have always been sort of a painter and always drawing and sketching and things like that. So that sort of came second nature. While I was in school, of course, I did a lot of art classes because I feel like if I'm in here, racking up student loans, I might as well take the classes that I absolutely want to take. And so that has been my philosophy: learn what you want to learn, especially if you got to pay for it, right? The illustration is sort of what I lean into because I enjoy it a little bit more than I do graphic design, but I am very happy to have the design skills because one thing that I've learned along the journey, and if you're looking to hire a designer or illustrator, is that not all graphic designers can illustrate and not all illustrators are graphic designers. So that's very, very important. And so I'm very happy to have, the skill set for that. Oh, I did all this on the wrong layer. All right, let me go back. I'm running my mouth. All right, there we go. Drop that in on a new layer. Okay, running my mouth and had all that on the wrong layer. All right, but I'm very, very happy and willing to share anything I might know if I can help. If I don't know, I'm one of those types of people. If I don't know, I don't know. You know what I mean? Sometimes we run into people who may not know a thing, but their, ego or whatever it is won't allow them to admit that they don't know. I'm not that person. If I don't know something, I don't know. I have no idea. We could learn it together, though. That's sort of how I approach it. So I had a conversation not long ago with someone who was in the business of helping people develop their businesses, right? And so I was sort of telling him about one of my goals that I had, but he was very unfamiliar with the industry that I wanted to sort of go into, right? But instead of saying that he was unfamiliar with it, or sort of mentioning that, or asking questions, really is what it was. Instead of asking questions about it so that he could get a better understanding, he didn't want to admit that he didn't know. So he started to sort of downplay the information that I was giving him. And I'm not that person. If I don't know something, I don't know something. I promise to you I don't, but we'll figure it out together and we'll learn together, right? So if there's something that you want to know, I'm very, very open to share what I have learned along my journey. All right, so I'm going to label this layer maiden clothes, and I'm going to do a new layer. Do I want to do a new layer? Yeah, no, you know what? I'm going to add her head wrap to this same layer because it's going to, for right now, it's going to be the same color again. I do see this being a lot more colorful. So there'll probably be a mix of different colors for each woman's outfit, but the primary colors will be their primary colors, if that makes sense. All right, so as we move this in, we're just selecting it, going to drop it in just like that. Boom, done. All right. And then again, I'll show you what this looks like when I turn off the sketch. And I do this once I get to a certain point, I'll just turn off the sketch and fill in any information. But this is sort of how we're looking. And this is really what we're going for, right? We're just sort of laying in the baseline colors. And then we'll come back and clean all of this up over the next couple of weeks as we work on this particular card. I think I'm going to change the color of her apron. I think I'm going to go with a pink. Let's go down here. Something like that. Maybe a little bit lighter. I don't know. I have the vision that I have is to do a little bit of color blocking when it comes to their clothes. Again, when I was doing research for this, these set of card, or for this particular card, a lot of the things that I was seeing were super bright and colorful, right? I don't know why I just did it. Let me go back to where I was. Oh, you know what? I do know. Okay, let me do that again. There we go. All right. So yeah, I do want to do some color blocking. I want this to be super duper duper colorful. I do. I think that would add to the idea that this is a celebration. I think that would add to pointing to some of the different spiritual systems that I called upon for inspiration for this card, because a lot of them celebrated with lots of colors. Now I know each of those colors probably has a significant meaning. I don't think I'm going to go that deep into the coloring of this, other than to have the primary colors, as they each character represents the maiden, the mother, and the crone, and they are initiating, the next new member or the next new generation in their celebration. So there we go. We have our maiden complete. So she does have a tambourine in her hand. I'm going to paint the tambourine layer beneath her skin, because for the most part, it's part of her skin sort of goes over it, right? So that's sort of the logic that I use when I'm ordering my layers. I think that's how you spell tambourine. If not, I know what I mean. I'm going to call on this same color that I use for the horsetail, and I'm just going to paint this in. I have never drawn a tambourine, but I have a good idea of what they look like. So I just sort of made that. And then what I will do later on as I begin to add details is I'll actually find a reference of an actual tambourine, so that this looks like what it's intended to look like. And so we'll do it that way. So she has her tambourine. Her mother has the sage. Grandmother has the horsetail. And so now we have our main character. And then after we do our main character, we'll do our cups. And I think we'll call it a stream. So again, if you're watching this live or the replay, I really, really appreciate you for being here on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. I don't know about you, but I am so happy that the sun is shining, right? Because better them gloomy days we're getting we're starting to get to me a little bit. I can't front. All right, now we have to decide on our skin color for our main character. I think, do I want to go darker or lighter? For now, let's go darker. I think I do want her to have a red undertone. All right, and we'll color this beautiful. Yes, this is the color I want. Yep, this is it. And when we get to sort of really adding details, she will be our light source, meaning that our characters will be lit with her being the sun. So think in terms of like the sun and being outside, right? If you ever watch the shadows of a tree, if the light hits one side, your shadow will be on the other. So that's sort of the steps we're taking, or steps we will take when it comes to painting our main character as our light source. She'll sort of glow, right? Now there is an artist in mind who does really, really great work with lighting. And I'm probably going to be using that artist. And I don't remember what her, I think Tay-chan or something like that. I have some of her works, I don't know what it is, but I have some of their work saved. So I'll sort of show you how well they approach lighting. And I'm going to use their expertise as inspiration for lighting my main character's figure. Now, a little bit of um color theory is happening, right? Now, because we have this super bright yellow behind her, it's making her skin appear to be a little bit darker. So we'll have to sort of be sure to balance that out when we go to adding value to her skin. But again, she's going to be the light source. So as the light source, she will glow at a certain point. I'll have her glow a little bit. And I really love this color. I love this very cocoa like, because it's got this red undertone. Really like this color for her. So we'll play around with that. And as we begin to add details and as we begin to add shadows, what we will do is push the yellow back some by adding a darker tone behind it. And that'll sort of help our little girl stand out, because we don't necessarily want her to get lost in the vibrancy of everybody else's outfits, right? We do want her to stand out because this is her moment. And she's the main character of this story, and everybody is sort of supporting her and celebrating with her. But I do love this particular color for her skin. And we're just going to paint that in and we'll move around. Now, I did break a little bit of my strategy where I would paint from the back forward with her, because technically what I probably should have done is painted her dress first. But I was sort of excited to get to, her skin color. So we'll make sure to arrange our layers in such a way that what needs to be behind certain things is behind certain things. All right, so that's her skin color. I think above that, I want to do her hair. Okay, I think I'm going to use a similar color to her skin. We're just going to make it a bit darker. And we're just going to paint in her hair. So I'm really excited about this picture. I used to be very nervous about how my art style has changed over the years, and if it would make a huge difference as I move through this, because it's been 6 years and I've been sort of working consistently and getting better consistently as an artist. I don't think, I don't think myself too far in the game where I can't learn and improve and all of those things. So of course, I've been a professional artist for a very, very long time, over a decade, but I do enjoy and intend to continue to learn and to grow as an artist, right? And so one of the things that sort of popped up in my mind was whether or not my art style would change too significantly from the very first image that I've done. So far, I think I've done a really great job of just improving, but also keeping things pretty in line, right? So what ended up happening was, early on, I did all these really beautiful, extremely detailed cards. And then I was getting to cards that weren't quite as detailed, right? And so I was getting a little worried about that, and not sure whether or not, I was going to be able to create consistency. But I think sometimes we create worries in our minds where there shouldn't be. And that was sort of what was happening. Because what has happened is, though, yes, I have grown as an artist, it all seems to be faring well, right? It all seems to just be an elevated version of whatever I've already done. And who's to say that I can't go back and improve certain pieces that I may feel need improvement? And that actually is the goal. So I have a few that I would like to go back and tweak. One of those is the Knight of Pentacles. And I don't want to necessarily tweak the character, but I do want to tweak the environment that I have the character in. I don't necessarily like, I think I want to have her in pink. I think that's what I want to do. I don't necessarily like certain aspects of the background. What am I doing? And so I can see, like, as I've improved. Oh, I'm on the wrong thing. That's why. I can see as I have improved, what needs to be changed in that particular card. Also, another one that I would like to go back and just make tweaks to is the hanging one, which is the hangman card for the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, because I did not want to. Because this is an all black deck, to me, it did not speak right in my spirit to have a black man hanging from the tree. Right? I don't think that needs further explanation. I just was not going to do that. So I did create, and I leaned into the story of the martyrdom aspect in the different perspective, of course. And of course, the person hanging from the tree isn't like lynched or anything like that, like you would see in some certain imagery. It just didn't sit well with me to call it the hanged man, and I did not want to draw a man. Right? So I call her the hanging one. I took the approach of having a child sort of hang from like monkey bars, right? And the reason that I did that was because with the hanged man, it is often a sign to sort of take a different perspective, right? You want to have a different perspective. Also, the hanged man tends to be a martyr. And so with children often have a much freer perspective when they look at things because they're not hindered by life, right? They're not hindered by stress. Their imaginations are super active. And so that was the reason that I decided to go with a child for the hanged man. And I called her the hanging man, of course, hanging one, of course, and hanging her from a monkey bar. But the issue that I have with that particular card is just sort of how her legs are placed. So I would like to go back and fix that now that I've grown again as an artist. I saw the issue when I did it. Like I knew it was gonna be something I'd want to come back and fix when I completed the card. And so that's one of the ones that I would like to go back and do. I think a couple other just small tweaks, like to the Queen of Pentacles, which is otherwise a beautiful card. I would like to sort of make some changes to like her hands. One of her hands I would like to go back and change. So there are cards that I would like to go back, and I think growing as an artist over these last 6 years has given me sort of the tools to be able to do that, right? And to be able to get the exact same or whatever it is that I envision. The other thing that I probably want to go back and change, maybe, I'm not really sure, I'm sort of debating it, is the Two of Cups. And the reason, Two of Cups, yeah. The reason why is because in this image, for all of the twos and all of the number cards, they have whatever number that is, whatever number item. So, like if it's a Three of Cups, they have three cups. If it's the Two of Swords, it's two swords, Two of Wands, and so on and so forth. And the Two of Cups, for whatever reason, I had an idea in my mind, and I didn't think to, for whatever reason, did not think to put two cups in this picture. So I don't know yet if that's going to be an issue. I may poll the audience, may ask some readers for their opinion on that, because the image is pretty much the way that I would like for it to be. I don't know where the second cup would go. Maybe I'll show you guys what that looks like. I'll show you. I don't know where the second cup will go. I don't even know if it's going to be an issue because the number is on the card. But for people who don't necessarily pay attention to the numbers of the card or the names, and they're just, because the name is not even going to be there, it's just be the number, right? If they're just reading the image and they're only seeing one cup, I don't want them to mistake that for the Ace of Cups, which would be the one card. So I am trying to decide, and maybe it's up on here. Maybe it is, rather than go through that. And I'll show you. There it is. All right. So if we're looking at this video, in the center there, the older couple with the cup in the middle, that's the Two of Cups. There are not two cups in that picture. And so because of the way that it's laid out, I don't know if that's going to be an issue. I have no idea. I guess I won't know until I decide whether or not I'm going to put it out there and just kind of see what the readers say in response. But for the other sort of numbered cards, they all have whatever number of items in each card. So that's one of the big ones that I would like to go back and change. I'm not really sure. I think that's about it. The Two of Cups, maybe. The Queen of Pentacles for sure, because I something about her hand bothers me so much. And this one, so we're looking at this video down in the bottom left hand corner next to the wheel of time, next to the wheel of time, next to the wheel of fortune is the Knight of Pentacles. And so within that, the environment, there's a rock, there's like a rogue rock that I painted into this image that I want to go back and fix. So I'll probably go back and tweak the environment because I've gotten a lot better with creating like backgrounds and things like that. Let's see what else there may be. So this is the hanging one in that same spot where we had the Knight of Pentacles. The hanging one, her legs just need to fold over just a little bit more, right? So I may have to go back and repaint her legs and maybe tweak her shirt. That was probably one of the fastest cards that I have created. I had created it so fast that I was like, I don't know. It wasn't no struggle to it. So I was like, I don't know if this feels right. But after the fact, I figured that I kind of needed to go back and make those just that little tweak to that one. I think that's about it. I'm pretty happy with the rest of the cards so far. I really love the work that I've created. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm really proud of myself. Again, this is the largest project that I've undertaken. And this is just sort of a demonstration of me betting on myself, right? Because again, at the time that I started this project, I wasn't really sure how the people that I had already sort of developed a relationship with in terms of like people who admired my art and people who were following along with my artistic journey would respond to it because I'd only sort of dabbled in what I really was wanting to create off and on, right? So 2017, I did a sketch witches series. 2018, I rendered those witches at I rendered those witches out, meaning I completed the illustrations for those. I want to say that sort of off and on, I would do like sirens and different sorts of mythical beings and creatures and things like that. But for the most part, the art that I was creating and sharing was all fan art. So when it came to like, okay, I really just want to dig into the spiritual realm and sort of even on the sci-fi fantasy end of it, right? So like the mermaids and the sirens and the nine-tailed foxes and demons and angels and all these different things motifs. I was afraid to do that because I wasn't really sure how it would go over, right? And I think that's a mistake. It's a very natural response to doing something new that you've never done before, but I think leaning too heavily into that can be a mistake, right? Sometimes you just got to do it, and that's sort of what I did. Just kind of went with it. So right now what I'm doing, just to segue just a bit, is I'm laying in the rest of her sort of collar, right? Or not collar, her sleeves. They are sitting a little bit strange, or her skin is sitting a little bit strange. So what I'm going to do is tweak her skin, sort of take out the excess of what I don't need, and then I will go from there. So she was supposed to have a flower crown. I don't know if, because I have 4 characters to do, I don't know if I want to take the time to do flowers. So maybe I do something else in her crown. I'm not entirely sure if I want to approach that now. But I think the last thing we're going to do really quickly is going to be the wands. And not wands, the cups. And for that, I'm just going to lay down a base color gold. I'm going to go back to my Knight of Cups, and I'm going to borrow the gold. I could borrow this gold. Let's see. I'll borrow her gold. That's good enough. Because what I'm going to end up doing is adding a gradient on top of this so that it'll give me that metallic look. And of course, we'll paint in some reflections and things like that. And then from there, we're going to call it a stream. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. This went a little bit longer than normal. But flats for me, sketches are probably the most important thing. Because if I have a good solid sketch, that kind of eliminates a lot of the guesswork that I have to do later on. So sketching to me is very important. It is something that I emphasize whenever I do client work as well. So When I have clients, what will happen is me and my client will talk and they'll say, okay, this is what I want to do. I want, this children's book, and this is the theme, this is the script, and then we'll go through all of that, right? But what I will do rather than just illustrate the whole thing is I will create sort of sketches so that they can approve that part before I get to the rendering, because I have the sketch anyway, right? And so when I do that, that eliminates a lot of the revisions. So if you are a commission artist or you're someone who takes projects from other people, start making your clients approve your sketches, right? That is going to save you so much time down the line, so many revisions, because once they sign off on those sketches, then the rest of it is just adding details and the changes that you'll make. So, because revisions are just a part of the process, but the revisions that you'll make from then on won't be as hectic as, okay, you drew this lady's arm, you've painted it, and you've given it all these wonderful details, but I don't like her arm like that. I want her arm down to her side, right? So if you go through all of that first, if you paint and finish the illustration, and then they come back and say, well, I don't really like the placement of her arm, it takes exponentially more work to do to fix it than it would be for you to fix it in the sketching phase. So sketches to me are number one important thing, when it comes to creating a digital illustration. From there, my flats are probably the next most important thing, because that helps me sort of lay out the color palettes. It helps me make decisions and make sure that values are where they need to be. And then after that, the fun part begins, and that's when you just add details, right? But if I have my sketches figured out, if I have my flats and all of my colors sort of, for the most part, figured out, everything else sort of just falls into place, right? So you'll see me, we'll go through flats a few times. Like I said, we have 42, 43 cards left to create. So you guys will witness this process quite a bit. And I think I'll show more of the process of like beginning to end, which is what we've done for this card and a couple others while we've been sort of doing our Sunday streams. And that way you can kind of see how each step comes together. So again, if I'm doing something from the beginning, actually start with a thumbnail, right? So my thumbnails allow me to lay out composition, and I'll show you just real quick what that looks like. Thumbnails to me are just stick figures. I don't really have to have anything super detailed when it comes to a thumbnail. Thumbnail is just to say, hey, the character A is going to be here, character B is going to be there. These are thumbnails, right? These are just mini sketches, stick figures that tell me, okay, this is the idea that I'm going for. And I do this a lot. I'll doodle. Sometimes I'll get ideas for cards or different illustrations, and I'll just sort of doodle them on like index cards. So I keep a stack everywhere in my house. I keep a stack next to my computer. It could be something like this. I'll say, okay, you know what? I think I have an idea for whatever the card is. I'll doodle it or do something like this, which is a thumbnail, right? Once we go through the thumbnailing process, I'll say, okay, hey, I want my main character. So this is the Three of Wands. I want my main character here. I kind of want a portal in the background. I want her to be walking up, or him or her, because by this time I'm not making those kinds of decisions, right? This character A is here. She's discovering these statues here. It could be a sphinx head or whatever in the sand. And then behind her, I want there to be a doorway or a portal, a pyramid, right? And I'm making all of these notes on my thumbnails. From there, from the thumbnails, what I will do is I will then sketch it, right? So you guys watched me last week sketch or finish the sketch for this, and I'll show you based on that particular thumbnail what the final product looked like. And that was, what was that, Three of Wands? Just to sort of put it all together for you. So I'll sketch. Sketch is super important. That's step number one. That saves me so much time down the line. Once I've done those sketches, I'll do flats, and from flats, I will go across, the whole illustration and add details, and then finishing touches, and then we're done, right? Sometimes the process is extremely fast, like the hanging one. I think I finished that bad boy in like 2 days. It was very quick, and I'm talking like a couple hours for each day, so maybe 5 hours all together. It didn't take very, if that long. It didn't take very long at all. Sometimes they take a lot longer. Just depends on the level of detail in each image. But having that solid foundation makes a huge difference. So when I'm again working with clients, having that approved. So here is our finished product for the Three of Wands. So we had our main character, and I'll show you again what that thumbnail looks like, just to have a reference of how this goes, right? So I would, and I don't present the thumbnails to my clients, right? They just get the finished sketches. But this is sort of step one thumbnail, right? Got my character, got my head. This was initially my first idea was to have an Olmec head, but I was like, no. Then it went from Sphinx, and then it went to something else, right? But something sticking out of the sand. So I have my character, something sticking out of the sand, a gateway, and in this case, I wasn't really sure if I wanted the wands to be in the background or in the foreground, right? So this is thumbnail number 2. Character, she's standing on the edge of like a cliff. Something coming out of the sand, a gateway and pyramid in the background, and then that went from that to this, which was our character again, our 3 wands in the foreground, something sticking out of the sand. In this case, I used one of the elements from the Knight of Wands, right? So this is one of the statues from the Knight of Wands. Instead of making 2 separate things in the background in terms of having a pyramid in the background and a doorway, I made the pyramid the gateway, right? So she's sort of looking out. That is the process. So when when it came time to develop the 3 of Cups, I had sort of a baseline idea just based on the original source material from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. From there, I just thought about the story, and then as I was developing the story, this is what we got, and now you guys are getting a chance to watch the process unfold. Right? All right. So this very last cup, while I'm running my mouth, let me do that, and then we're going to call this a stream. So if you're here, you're watching this live with me, thank you so, so much for being here with me. I really, really hope that you find this interesting. And if not, it's okay, because I do. I don't know if that's, I don't know how that is to hear, but I do enjoy it. And I really enjoy having you guys here. I have you in, really enjoy having you in the chat. So I like seeing you guys in the chat. I like getting you guys' questions and your feedback and all of that. I really, really appreciate you for being here, because you could be anywhere else and you choose to be here with me. So I thank you so, so much for that. All right, so we're just going to clean this up a bit. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect, because as we develop the image, things will get a lot more polished. We do want to have the indication that the gold cup is here. And the reason that we want to do it sort of like this is because what will happen later on is I will select this, and then I will do the gradient, and that'll sort of help me out a little bit with making sure that this reads as a cup. All right, so this is the progress that we've done today so far. Last week we finished up our sketch, and today we laid down our flats. If you would like to learn more about flats, I do have a standalone video. I think it's the last full video I did maybe a few weeks ago. So if you want to actually more detailed explanation of how flats work and why I use flats and different ways to do it, please go check out that video. But if you enjoyed this, please leave me a thumbs up. And my goal this year is to get 1,000 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. We stream every Sunday at 3:30 p.m. Central. So thank you so, so much for being here. And without further ado, I hope that you have a happy, prosperous, and creative, I'm getting all tongue-tied. I hope you have a creative week next week, and just a wonderful week. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. So without further ado, I'll see you next week. Peace.